What's going on, world? Welcome to another edition of Insightful Principles. My name is Kevin Jenkins, and I'm actually here with a special guest of mine, Kristina Wilson, and I'm very excited for this episode that we all have lined up for all of our viewers out there that are watching. And me and Christina, I've actually known her for the last 4 years or so, and we actually have some of the same similar interests and background. We're both born from Detroit, Michigan, and also we went to the same university, Bowling Green State University, where we both study sport management. I actually graduated in 2015, and Christina, I believe, was it 2011 for
Yes.
you? Yeah, so it's great to see the growth that we both have had within our careers and also within business. And since Bowling Green, Christina has went off to do amazing things. She actually has recently, in the past recent years, she went and studied law at Loyola University in Chicago. And at the moment now, she currently has her own practice, law practice in Los Angeles, California, where she provides legal services in the field of sports and entertainment. She also helps a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners with structuring their business as well as estate planning. So, Christina, I'm so glad that you're on the show today, and thank you for coming.
Oh, thank you for having me. But I did want to add one thing. I also have a farm in Detroit too, so
Oh,
I
okay.
can't forget about my home city.
Okay. No, you definitely can. And that's great that you have it both in your hometown and also within Los Angeles. So, to get things started here, can you kind of share with the world a little more about yourself and for someone that may be learning about you for the first time?
Well, you pretty much covered a lot of it, but kind of giving a little bit of background as to how I ended up becoming a sports and entertainment attorney. I was a student athlete. I went to King High School in Detroit. Go Crusaders!
Mhm.
But there I played basketball and ran track and field. So I've been playing basketball since I was 12. Started track in high school. Ended up running track at Bowling Green for 1 year before I was hurt. And I kind of already knew I wanted to be president, like wanted to be a lawyer because it's like my mom was like, "You could be president of the United States," and instead of being a kid thinking, "Oh, she's lying to me," I actually was like, "Bet." All right. So, like at 8 years old, I was like, okay, what does the president do? And I assumed that the president needed to know the law to become president. And so I was like, I'm going to go to law school and be a lawyer so I can become president. And by the time we got through high school, I was like, nah, I don't like politics. I don't have the stomach for it. You call me out of my name, it's going to be a problem.
Yes.
So I still wanted to be a lawyer, but it was like at that point I had been in business programs through Go Lightly Career and Technical Center. I was in the Academy of Finance. So how could I combine business, law, and my other interests? And that's when I discovered sport management as a major. And I'm like, oh, I can be a sports lawyer or a sports agent. Okay, that's what I'm gonna do. So during that time, went to Bowling Green, which was, at the time was one of the top programs in the country in sports management. It was still a
Mhm.
pretty early major; not too many schools had it. So then it was just from there, kind of just developed, and I got to major in sports management with a focus in marketing. Got a lot of experience working for the Detroit Pistons and the Detroit Shock at one point. Worked for the university. I worked for Bowling Green State University's athletic department for 3 out of the 4 years I was there in their marketing department. I also worked for the University of Toledo in their marketing department for my final semester. And you leverage that experience to go to law school and knew what I wanted to do passion wise. And worked for great companies, worked for Loyola's athletic department in their compliance office. I worked for Salvi Sport Enterprises, which owned a nonprofit that allowed them to be able to own a minor league baseball team. So I was in charge of helping them to secure their nonprofit status for their Indiana team that was located in Gary, Indiana. And then from there, just kind of worked for Intersport for a year. doing all of their contracts. So I came across like so many television broadcast deals, sponsorship deals, everything. So after graduating, went back to Detroit as a Challenge Detroit fellow and did a year as a fellow working for the Chevrolet Detroit Belle Isle Grand Prix, which is a nonprofit owned by Penske Corporation that worked for the revitalization of the Belle Isle Island in Detroit. So there, I was in charge of their community relations and their in-house legal department. So I pretty much did all of their contracts there, reviewed their deals, made sure they were implemented, just pretty much made sure that contractually everything ran smooth with the Grand Prix. So once that ended and the the legal job market hadn't rebounded after my fellowship, I decided to start my own firm because by then I had reviewed hundreds of contracts. I knew what I was doing. And it was pretty much like I can either sit here and pray and wait for someone to give me a job, or I can create myself an opportunity that either one, they will hire me because I'm a dope lawyer and I have my own book of business, or my business would do so well that I don't need to work for anybody else. And so that's how the law offices of Kristina T. Wilson were born. And for the first 2 years of my firm, I was in Detroit. I had went way from the sports side all the way over to music. I became a music attorney. Most of my clients were record labels, songwriters, producers, and singers. So, and rappers. And it was amazing. But I had a client also in the sports world. His name was Chris Staples. And he was with the Harlem Globetrotters at the time. So I helped him with his movie deal, his Globetrotters deal, and a lot of the different commercials and things that he's done. And I went to visit him in California, and that's when I realized like Los Angeles was the place to be. I had dreamed about being there for like my entire life. I was like, I don't like the cold. I can't do it. I refuse. So I came out here and fell in love, man. California is such a beautiful state, and man, the city of Los Angeles, it was just like a dream come true. So I pretty much started that journey and had a lot of obstacles in that process. The California bar is no joke. I did not pass the first time, the second time, third time. It took me failing the bar 6 times. And it's so embarrassing to say, but some people say don't say it. I'm like, I do not care if you don't want to work with me because I failed the bar. It is what it is. But throughout that process, I got to learn who I was, what I really wanted to do. And that was also get back to sport because by then I had done mostly trademarks and music. So I was like, how can I get back to sport and get back to my community and do the things that I'm passionate about? And that's where the idea and the concept of dual threat was born. And Dual Threat is my new nonprofit that I just started here in 2021. It's called Dual Threat Prep Academy. Prep Academy is a nonprofit organization that will pretty much teach student athletes the game inside of the game from the 6th grade all the way through college and professional sport if they choose to go that way. So it won't just focus on character development and things of that nature that they can get up elsewhere. It will focus on etiquette, sexual harassment, racism. It'll also focus on contracts, amateurism, business, how to brand themselves. Pretty much giving them the knowledge and the understanding that they need to be able to capitalize and maximize their opportunities using their athletic abilities versus other people taking advantage of them and them not being able to reap the benefits from it because they make stupid mistakes. So that was born during that low point in my life where I was trying to figure out what it was I wanted to do. Now, eventually, I did pass the California bar. I passed in 2019. I was sworn in as a California attorney in 2020. I opened my California practice in 2020. So, in essence, I now have a law firm location in Detroit, a law firm location in Los Angeles, and a nonprofit located in Los Angeles. And a couple other businesses that you guys will probably find out about later. But it's been a crazy ride because if you would have told me as that bright-eyed freshman at Bowling Green that I would end up being a serial entrepreneur, I would have laughed at you because that was not the dream. That was not the choice. Who starts their own law firm a year out of law school? Like, all right, let's go for it. And it's been going 5 years strong now. And I'm actually been practicing law for 6 years now. So it's so weird. I'm still learning so much. I'm still at the beginning of my career. And even my practice of law went from being mostly a music attorney to like I'm doing business. I help with formations and things of that nature for small businesses. I'm working in cannabis. I'm working on getting the knowledge and education to enhance my practice that way because so many athletes and entertainers are working in the cannabis space. So making sure that they're protected. I do
Mhm.
trademarks, copyrights, music, acting, film, and television. I've done sport, both traditional and non-traditional. It's amazing to see like how much I can touch, and now I'm in collegiate athletics and helping in that space. So I'm just super grateful and super thankful that my experience has allowed me to be able to touch people in so many different ways. And to really, the premise of my
Mhm.
whole firm and everything I do comes from that nonprofit background and helping people. Like, it's my duty to give back to those
Mhm.
who came behind me. And with my clients, it's my duty to protect them so that they can live their dreams like I am. So I know that was a long winded response. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Oh no. No, everything that you said is really a testament of just hard work, dedication, staying consistent, and just being able to adapt. Going at Bowling Green, even for myself, studying sport management. I didn't really know exactly. I had an idea of what I wanted to do in sports, but I feel like we're continuing to evolve and learn different things about ourselves, and sometimes God calls us in different directions. And I think that everything that you went through with taking the bar exam, you didn't stop, and that's really a testimony to everyone out there that is trying to chase a vision. You have to stay persistent, and I think that your background it's allowed you to gain so many great skill sets. I think that it has definitely prepared you to walk in the light of you having your own practice and really giving back to the community and adding value. And I actually wanted to transition into just really talking about how your business background has prepared you with developing your law practice. Because I know with sport management, one thing that I learned about at Bowling Green is that it really teaches you about the business side behind sports, whether it's communications, law, finance, business development. All of these different areas is what sustains, a brand or even a sports team. So can you kind of talk on how that experience has allowed you when you are working with professional athletes, how that background has prepared you for those
So
conversations?
I'm going to start this like by saying without my degree from Bowling Green, I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing. And that is because I didn't do the JD MBA. That's one of my biggest regrets that I did, and that I just didn't go ahead and get that extra degree when I was already paying for another degree. But I didn't have a business
Mm-hmm.
background going into starting my own firm outside of the knowledge that I gained in the sport management program. A lot of people get it confused because our degrees say School of Education and Human Development, but they don't understand
Yes,
that we had a
yeah,
full-fledged business degree.
yeah,
Like, we took economics, we took accounting, finance, we took
yeah,
management, we took all
yes.
of those classes, and then we took extra classes in those same fields in the sports arena. So we took sports law and business law. We took properties and management. We
Mm-hmm.
took all of those different courses. So I
Yeah.
essentially had a business degree with the sports emphasis. especially my marketing
Mm-hmm.
classes. So literally, I use skills that I got
Right.
gained from that degree every single day in not just managing my own practice, but every day in helping my clients to understand what it is. Like the first time I ever heard the word jock tax wasn't in law school, that was in college. So understanding that when I'm representing
Mm-hmm.
professional athletes, I'm letting them know, like, hey, you have to pay taxes in every single state that you play in, not just like
Mm-hmm.
your home state. Like most of us, wherever we reside and work, that's where we pay taxes. No, when you are an athlete or even an entertainer, you owe taxes to every state that you work in. So that's something that they need to understand, and being able to have that type of understanding, that knowledge to be able to hire the right people to surround them that manage their money. Because I'm not expecting athletes to know everything about their money, but they need to know the basics. And that's what I teach my clients. Like, I'm not the type of attorney that wants them to depend on me hand and foot at every single moment, because most of my clients are starting out their businesses, getting hit with large legal fees, which I am reasonable, but still not going to undercut my actual value. I teach them some of the things that they need to know so that they don't have to call me for every single thing, because they understand what's going on. And then they can follow up and double check with me, like, hey, Kristina, I had this deal go through. You reviewed the contract. I kind of understand it because you showed me what I should be looking for. And I just need you to review this to make sure that the deal points were negotiated properly and are included in the contract. That's a lot different from, Kristina, I need you to negotiate this contract, do this contract. It's going to cost them a lot more if they don't know what they're doing. So I work with them to teach them what they can and can't do so that they don't get in trouble, so that I have a lot of clients that may try to do it on their own at first, and because they don't have the money to hire an attorney. And I'm like, no, I want to make it so that you can hire an attorney. We have payment plans, we have a way for you to be able to consult me so that I don't have to clean it up once you're done. So right now it's been a blessing, because I really do not think I would have been prepared, because law school teaches you the law in a sense that it's more of the theory of law. So they teach you how to think like a lawyer. You learn the actual law itself when you're studying for the bar exam, but they don't really focus on teaching you how to start your own solo practice or even a partnership. Like, my university has started incorporating classes, practical classes like accounting for lawyers and things of that nature, but that's not usually the premise of school. And to be perfectly honest, it's not the premise of any university or school to teach you how to be an entrepreneur unless you have an entrepreneur program. Like, I look at business school students,
Mm-hmm.
and I mentor a lot of law students and business school students who are trying to go to school, and they're like, what are they looking for? I'm like, they're looking for someone that's going to make their school look good as an employee usually. They want you to work for the big brands like Sony and Microsoft and things of that nature. They don't teach you how to be a Sony or a Microsoft in most aspects. So
Mm-hmm.
I had to learn that myself. When I started my firm, I'm like, what does a law firm do? And there are a lot of rules and regulations that people don't understand go into starting a law practice. Like, you have to have a client trust account because you can't commingle your client's money with your money, especially if you haven't earned it yet. You have to understand the different nuances between states. Like in Los Angeles, you cannot have a professional limited liability corporation, but in Michigan, you can. But I knew I wanted to operate in both. But so how can I get the tax benefits of having an LLC without having an LLC if I can't have an LLC in California? So it was like, okay, I can do an S corporation. An S corporation has a lot of rules and regulations, but I am a solo practice, so I don't have to worry about having 35 members. But I do in the future. Like, if I grow my law firm and I want to bring in partners and it turns into, I can't have 1,000-person law firm, I can have a 35 partner law firm, but also understanding like the rules and tax benefits. And I stress this to my clients specifically. Tax people are your friends. You need a tax professional when you start a business. Because without mine, the IRS probably would have came after me a long time ago. But like you need certain people on your team, and I would say your tax professional and your lawyer are the top two people. And so, me operating as my lawyer, I still had consultation from other lawyers that helped me in the process of building my practice. And even now, I don't cover every form of law out there, so I still have a nice network of lawyers where I recommend clients to them because I can't address it. I'm not ashamed to say I don't know. I will call someone who does.
Yeah.
So it's just like starting with the business degree and having a basic level understanding of business, I think is a must. Even if you're taking like an online class, a free online class, you need to know basic accounting. You need to know like how to do sales projections, put together a business plan. Just the small things that a lot of people overlook because they end up being instrumental in growing your business in the future.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and I think that the business background that I learned at Bowling Green, and then also what I learned in my MBA program, it kind of built off of it, off of what I learned in sport management. And when getting my MBA, like you said, at the end of the day, it is really theory. They're not really teaching you to be an entrepreneur, but with my MBA, they're basically trying to really teach you how to get in that, I guess you can say, top seat or the executive seat in a sports management program. If you're working, for a sports team, working at the highest level. But like you said, if you do have the aspiration of really wanting to have your own law practice or even wanting to only have your own sports agency, you have to really take the work outside of your education and really build on those skill sets, because that's what I have done, and just learning more and more. And I actually really wanted to talk on, just for someone out there that's looking to wanting to start their own law practice. You kind of talked on it a little bit, but like, what are like the steps if someone is getting ready to take the bar exam? They know after they pass the bar exam, they want to go out on a leap of faith and run their own show. Like, what were the steps for you? What were the costs, or even the cost of having a firm in two different locations in like Michigan and California? Can you kind of shine a light on that, on just that process if someone is looking to wanting to
So one thing
do that?
I would not suggest: do not do what I did. Starting a law firm a year out of law school or even sooner is a very bad idea, unless you have a substantial amount of experience. I do know a lot of younger attorneys that I've worked with. Some of my BSLA, shout out to the Black Entertainment Sports Lawyers Association. A lot of my BSLA young lawyers that own their own firms are around the same age as me. So we all started early. A lot of us had a substantial amount of experience before. So I feel like get the experience first, but still know that you want to start your own firm. So if that means getting internships that cater to exactly what you want to do, learn how they do their business. So me working for Intersport is a sports marketing firm in Chicago. So I got to see firsthand what it's like to work in-house and do those type of contracts, understand the different types of business deals. But I also had experience working with nonprofits, and forming corporations in a nonprofit organization. I had experience working in compliance and working with student athletes. I had substantial experience while in law school that prepared me for the fellowship, which I was just thrown into the fire. So I knew what it was like to manage with clients, to work with big deals that had millions of dollars at stake. So I was very confident that I could start my own firm. But one thing is, you have to believe in yourself. That's step number one, because it's like I had a client that I had worked with, and this was more of a like, oh, this is my friend from college. I'm gonna help her out because I was, working for Penske at the time. And I called her and was like, how did you know I helped did her publishing deal. She has her own literary publishing company for children's books. She's a children's books author, and she had her own job and stuff, but she started her own children's mentoring program based off of her books to help them with reading. So she did nonprofit. She did a lot of work, and I asked her, how did you do this? Like, why would you do this? Like, you have a degree, lucrative job. Why would you start your own literary company? And she was like, and this is the best advice I've gotten to this day is, what's the worst that can happen from starting your own business? If it fails, you can go work for somebody else, which is what you would have done if you didn't start your business. And I was like, oh, I have nothing at all to lose. So that's really what it was, is I had the confidence in myself, knowing that the very worst possible thing that can happen is I can go and get a job working for someone else. And I thank God I haven't had to really do that since then. I've done independent contractor work and contract work. Building a practice takes time. You have to understand you will not see a profit immediately, but having the patience to ride out the waves, the issues that you'll be presented, is worth it. Now, when you talk about expenses, I cut a lot of expenses in overhead being a transactional lawyer, because I don't have to have an office. What I would do, I would meet with clients where they wanted to meet. So very early in my firm, I ended up meeting at Panera Bread a lot of the times, or meeting at Starbucks, meeting at a convenient location for my clients. And a lot of my transactions, even with my Michigan clients, I don't have to travel back and forth to Michigan very often, because I can talk to them over the phone or through Zoom or through email to give them updates, to know what happens with the negotiation. Same thing happens when I'm negotiating with other parties. I don't have a lot that I have to worry about in that aspect, because my overhead is pretty low and technology is amazing. But you still have to understand there are going to be taxes. Like here in the state of California, whether you make money or not, you have a minimum $800 tax if you start a business in the state of California. And then if you make over $300,000 and you operate in Los Angeles, there's some more taxes that you need to pay at that point. So you need to understand the rules of engagement in the particular state in which you work. So in the state of Michigan, it costs $50 to start a business. In the state of Texas, it costs $300 to start a business. So there are some differences that you need to understand and know the different prices. You have to open a bank account, get an EIN number, which is free, legal services, trademarking. Now, because my law firm is named after me, I didn't have to trademark it, because it's not any other Kristina T. Wilsons out there. There's a Kristina S. Wilson, who's a Black attorney in Texas, who owns her own firm. So I've had some of her clients find me before. But you just have to do the thorough research and the due diligence. You're a tax professional. I have money for that. I have money set aside for CLEs, which is our continued legal education. I go to conferences based in my field. So I go to BSLA, I go to the Sports Lawyers Association conferences. I'm a member of WISE. I'm a member of the Black Sports Professionals. I am trying to make sure that I am as thoroughly educated as possible. California, the Wolverine Bar Association, the American Bar Association, like California Bar Association. It's so many different associations that give you the continued legal education to make sure you're staying on top of it. Because if you're working for yourself, you have to hold yourself accountable. You don't have a boss that's telling you, oh, you need to take the CLE so that you're well versed in it. You want to be top notch and great at everything that you do. Now, if you're on the litigation side, it's going to be a higher cost at starting your firm, because you most likely need to have an office, because you'll need to meet with clients. You need to make court appearances, have carriers that can send your document certified mail, hire paralegals and a legal assistant. So the cost is going to be a little higher when you go into litigation. But I have friends that practice litigation all over
Mm-hmm.
the country, and they're doing it, and they get a lot of money from it because as a transactional attorney, I charge per hour. My hours are a little bit less on a
Right.
contract than it is when you're arguing a case. And then if you get a client on contingency and you get a percentage of what they settle for, that's a you put in a lot of hours of work, but 33% of $1 million, that'll set you up for a little
Mm-hmm.
bit if you end up with that type of case. So I think there's no cookie cutter way to start a law practice. All I can really say is be very knowledgeable in the particular field that you are practicing in. And then, if you aren't knowledgeable, learn up very quickly. Surround yourself with mentors that will help you to know it. Me being a part of BSLA has been a godsend when it comes to like, I had never done a 360 deal before. So I met with one of my mentors who is one of the top music attorneys who owns his own practice in New York. He taught me everything I need to know about a 360 deal because clearly I wasn't going to learn that in law school. They didn't even have
Mm-hmm.
music law in law school. So they taught me what books I need to read and things of that nature. I'm constantly learning, constantly studying. I'm constantly growing as a professional because I'm still young. I am not the end all be all expert. I still go towards my mentors. I ask them questions. I still work with other attorneys like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, have you seen a case like this before? So being an attorney is
Yeah.
kind of still learning on the fly a little bit too. So being flexible, understand you may not know everything. Google is your best friend sometimes because you know where to find legal precedent and analysis that can help you. And I just say be open for the wave because it is
Mm-hmm.
not easy all the time. You will have your ups and downs, your highs and lows, but that
Any
comes with
business.
being an entrepreneur in any business. There are going to be feast or famine.
Yeah, I
That's
mean, what I
that's
took out of
typically
what you
how it
just
goes.
said is, for anyone that's wanting to be an entrepreneur and have their own business, having the education and the experience, self education, and the experience is very important. Taking the time out of being a part of all of those organizations that you're involved with, it allows you to stay on top of your game. So the different things to implement within your business, and then also with the experience. I mean, that's one of the things that I'm doing right now. I work in the finance field. I have intentions of wanting to someday have my own financial planning, business. But I understand that getting in licenses that I need, just like with lawyers, they have to take the bar exam. They have to have these different I guess
Real
you could say these
estate.
different accolades under their belt. It just makes you more credible at the end of the day. So I'm working on various different licenses, but I know once I get that, along with the experience and the self education I'm already doing, that's what really will propel you to be able to walk down that journey. But the biggest point is believe in yourself, and don't be afraid to take a leap of faith, because like the one mentor, the lady, when she told you that you can always go work for someone if it doesn't work out. I mean, that's so true, and I think we get caught up in wanting to be comfortable, that we don't want to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. So I think that just seeing everything that you said is something that I truly agree with as well. Now I kind of wanted to transition. Uh-huh.
I do want to add on to that because
Mm-hmm.
the whole comfortable with being uncomfortable is something that
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you have to ignore the people around you. Like I've learned that my mom is a blue collar worker for Detroit. She's a construction worker. My father, my stepfather, my brother, my uncles, like a lot of them aren't doing what I'm doing. Or even my cousin, she's an attorney, but she is an equity partner at a firm. So she worked her way up through a firm and became a boss that way. So everyone has different experiences. So the advice that you get is not going to be based off of your experiences, but the experiences of other people. And sometimes they will have fears that you can't follow because your path is totally different. So it's okay to be like, I have had to tell my mom, it took her a while to understand owning my own
Yeah.
business didn't mean I was unemployed.
Yeah.
She was like, Kristina, go get a job. I'm like, I have a job. I have multiple
Oh,
companies here. and and now it's taken literally, I've been practicing law for 6 years and a business owner for 5, and it's finally like clicking to her. Oh, my daughter owns her own business. She hustles her own clients. She actually can make money doing
mm-hmm.
this. And I'm like, thank you. But sometimes you can't depend on, like, yes, you want advice from other people, but this is for anyone starting a business. So you have to be able to discern the different advice that you're going to get. Will it apply to you and what is useful? My stepdad always tells me, you take advice, you take what you need out of it, and then you throw the rest away. Because everything that someone tries to tell you, advice they try to
Mm-hmm.
give you, isn't going to apply to you. But I never will say just haphazardly jump into starting a
Right.
business. Be prepared, know what you're doing, know the service that you want to do. Because 2021 or 2020 was full of memes talking about just start
Go.
the LLC. I'm like, no,
Mm-hmm.
that's not how this goes. Have an idea or a concept or service or
Mm-hmm.
goods, then start a business. Do not just start a business with no product and then illegally
Yeah.
try to get business loans. That will get you put in jail. And I
Yeah.
don't practice
I
criminal
mean,
law, so I can't help
it's about the proof of
you.
concept, and having the right market research where you're prepared. So when you do take that jump, you already have done the necessary legwork to be prepared for anything that may come at you. And and what you're saying about with your family as well, it's the same thing with mine. My mom, she's been an English teacher for I want to say almost 23 years now, and she actually is now still teaching at King. And I actually went to King as well. I forgot that we both went to the same high school, but every time I have conversations with my mom, she's like, is this something that you really want to do? You have to be prepared, and she has the right heart. She doesn't want me to take a leap on something that I'm not prepared for. But I think a lot with our parents, they're so accustomed to their whole life. You can't allow someone else's fears to fall upon you. Just because they may have not wanted to take the leap of running their own business, you can't let that affect you. And I think what you said about the discernment, you have to be able to take certain things with a grain of salt and not allow it to affect you when you're trying to walk down that journey. So, I mean,
But you have to
great.
also understand that they're of a different generation. Our parents,
Yeah.
they preached us to go to college because that, like, college was supposed to be the, you go to college, you get a good job, you
Mm-hmm.
make a lot of money, you're good, right? The problem that comes with that is college does not prepare you to own
Right.
your own business. It prepares you to be an employee.
But,
So our parents were employees. Yes, there were some of them who started their own businesses,
mm-hmm.
but not a vast majority of them. We are the generation of
Right.
multiple
Well,
recessions and depressions. We are the
no.
generation of ridiculously high student loans. We are the generation of, this is not working. So what can I do to make something happen? Because I was promised that I would make a lot of money if I went to school, and I feel
Mm-hmm.
lied to, bamboozled, and deceived. How can I make this work? And so we see the remnants of the beginning of our generation. They started record labels. They started independent labels instead of becoming like working, going into like big labels like Universal and things of that nature. You see people starting their own fashion lines and fashion companies. You see people having access to the internet, so they pretty much can do their own movies from their own phones. They We have a plethora of resources that our parents didn't have. So yes, I think that they want to protect us, but and their only way of protecting us is
Do.
doing the things that they know
Mm-hmm.
how to do, which is to work. But for us, we are the risk takers. We are the generation of risk taking because we have no choice. I don't want to live
Yeah.
paycheck to paycheck in Los Angeles. You will go broke, and like my feelings are hurt. that I can't afford a house. And I have multiple degrees. I'm like, hold on, I did what you told me to do, but that house cost $725,000. I need to be able to bring in enough money. Do you not understand how much money you have to make per month after taxes
I
to be
know
able
it's
to afford a
expensive.
mortgage in Los Angeles?
Yeah,
So I'm like, I need to
exactly.
be a millionaire ASAP. And how can I do that? I'm going to have to, I
Mm-hmm.
can't do that just simply working for
Um,
someone. I have to
mhm.
have ownership of my own. And unfortunately for us as Black people,
Listen,
that wasn't a concept that was really preached to us because they didn't
do that.
allow our ancestors to be able to do that. So we've always been the workers, but now we're starting to see a
Mm-hmm.
boom of we are the owners and we give opportunities to other people. We give back to our communities. We're building ourselves up one generation at a time. So why can't we be the first generation to really get out there and say, "Hey, I'm going to make it. I'm going to own my own business. I'm
Yeah,
going to make it in my business so I can
yeah.
pass on to my children a actual business
Well,
and financial money and generational wealth so that 100 years from now that bloodline will never have to
mm-hmm.
worry about can they afford to go to college? Can they afford to do this? They will
Yes.
know what an entrepreneur is. Like,
Yeah,
but we've always had that mindset too. I was at
yeah,
King selling
yeah.
candy bars that I bought
I
at
did that
Costco.
too in high school. I
So.
remember selling candy. I mean, I know exactly. Like, I think we're really gonna be the generation to really make those changes where our kids are not going to have to go to Sally Mae, you know what I'm saying, to take out a student loan. So I think that just the education and the information that we're giving now and just the access to information that we have now is the reason why it is going to be a different narrative. 100 years from now, when we have, when our kids are passing down, when we're passing down generational wealth to our kids. So, yeah, you definitely are spot on with that one. Now, I kind of wanted to talk about collegiate athletics. I know last year the NCAA Board of Governors they're evaluating if they're going to allow student athletes to receive compensation from third-party endorsements for their name, likeness, and image. However, the student athletes are not going to be able to use the university's name or school logos to promote those endorsements. So I would love to get your opinion on the legal framework that will be necessary to help facilitate this rule, and also the challenges if it does get approved.
So it's so much going on with collegiate athletics because it started even when I was still in law school. That's when they were petitioning to be considered a union and so that they can get set like a minimum wage
Mm-hmm.
and to be considered employees of the university. So going and then also the O'Bannon case for images and likenesses for student athletes being used by EA Sports and other video games in which they made no money as college athletes whatsoever, but you literally have their entire name,
Mm-hmm.
likeness. Well, their names weren't
Mm-hmm.
uploaded on the games, but their likenesses were. And I remember my ex boyfriend was in college was a basketball player, and he literally bought the game so that he could see himself. And you're able to upload the roster.
Mm-hmm.
So his name was on the roster once you uploaded it. His number, his tattoos, his entire like body figure was on that game. And when I was in law school, I'm like, how are they not compensating student athletes for using this? Once I learned that you have a right to dictate who uses your name and likeness for commercial use,
Mm-hmm.
it's a part of your intellectual property. And I'm trying to
Crazy.
understand, like, how did they get away with this
Yeah.
for generations of gaming? And as you know,
Yeah.
they're actually
Big
bringing
game.
back
Yep.
college football,
Mm-hmm.
video games. So it's like with that, you're looking at student athletes. I was one. My freshman year at Bowling Green, I ran track. I was a walk on because I think I was a PLA scholar and had a full ride scholarship academically. Because if I was had to depend on athletics, I would have lost my scholarship after being injured my freshman year. But I knew football players that were allotted what
Mm-hmm.
$30 a day on their meal plan. That's $10 a meal. You are a 260-pound lineman.
It's not.
$10 is not gonna help you. Especially a Wendy's double cheeseburger meal was $10 back then by itself. And I'm like, they need to eat more than this. Like, and then they have mandatory team breakfasts that came out of their meal plan. So it's like you had athletes that struggled financially on our campuses with full ride scholarships. People keep thinking, oh, they get a full ride, they're compensated. College is more about just than tuition and room and board. You have to be able to pay for books. You have other clothing expenses, travel expenses. You have so many other things that you have to worry about there, especially if you're coming from a community or a background where your family can't financially support you for those other things. We had a student athlete on our campus who his mother died, and he couldn't afford to fly back home for the funeral, and like he had to get help financially for that. So for people to try to say, oh, student athletes don't need to be compensated, they should. Because essentially, think about how much money they bring into universities just from competing. Ohio State has 35 varsity sports, and that was the last time I checked. I'm pretty sure they've added some varsity sports since then. And their football program is one of the top 10 highest grossing football programs in the country. And they just appeared in the national championship. They got whooped, but they appeared there. So when you're looking at the amount of money and recognition they are bringing to the name and the logo of the university, for them to not be able to capitalize off of that or just their name and likeness is absurd. So when California was the first state to pass a law that would allow their student athletes to make money off of their name and likeness starting in 2023, and then other states like New York, I think Ohio and a few other states followed suit. That was a big deal because now it's like no one can use your name, your likeness, or your image for commercial purposes without your consent. And if your consent comes with a price tag, then that comes as well. They must pay for that. So that's a big deal because professional athletes have been able to do that forever. Like Michael Jordan was able to sue a grocery store for putting his picture next to a product and they were trying to sell that product, giving the illusion of an endorsement. And he's like, I wasn't paid for this. Take it down. Like, so I feel like I love the concept that student athletes would be able to do it, but it's going to be some big obstacles because the student athlete is going to be known because of the brand that they wear of the university. They have a built-in following and then of course national like syndication of that brand. So if you have a student like Justin Fields, let's use him for instance. Justin Fields is the quarterback of Ohio State. Well, probably not after this year, but he's the quarterback of Ohio State. Everyone knows who Justin Fields is in Ohio. So he would be able to get an endorsement from an auto shop company or an ice cream shop or something like that, especially in Columbus, because he is a well-known figure. And he wouldn't have to put quarterback of Ohio State University. However, if he wanted to do a Sprite commercial, and there's no way that they could advertise him and people know who he was without either putting images of him playing football in that Ohio State jersey or naming Ohio State quarterback. So because of that, Ohio State has trademark in the name, the Ohio State University. They have trademark in the logo. They have trademark in the mascot. They even have pretty much trademark in the colors that the crimson and sorry, I am not an Ohio State fan. I don't even know their official colors. I don't even care. But still, like the maize and blue, that block M is the most recognizable trademark in the world. The world. So no Michigan player can use that without the permission of Michigan. And Michigan could be like, okay, you can use it, but you got to give us 25-30% of what you receive. So it's a lot of legal nuances that's going to be tied up into it. The NCAA is trying to protect amateurism because with that, I kind of understand. A lot of people don't understand if you got, because of Title IX, if you pay, if you allow male athletes to be compensated,
Mm-hmm.
you have to allow female athletes to be compensated. So it
Right.
then becomes a matter of equity, equality. Like it's just a lot that goes on with making them employees, letting them capitalize off of their likeness. But we're at the point now that with laws being passed in states, the NCAA is not going to have a choice. And the competition, especially in those revenue sports like basketball, football, and yeah, it's pretty much basketball and football. And hockey is a revenue sport, depending on where the university is. If you're looking at those revenue sports, a lot of them have alternative things that they can do now. Like I think probably in the next few years, you're going to see the
Yeah.
NBA go rid of the one and done rule,
Mm-hmm.
and they'll go back to getting people out of high school. You're also seeing that the G League is now a legitimate developmental league for the NBA, paying over six figures to their athletes. So, and then of course they could go overseas. So now you're looking at three viable options outside of going to college that you can actually become a professional athlete and get paid. And you're seeing more and more student athletes opt to do that. In basketball, even in women's basketball, they're able to
College.
make more money overseas than they are being college athletes or even
Mm-hmm.
being professional female athletes here. With
Mm-hmm.
football, that's a different story. You
Yeah.
have to do 3 years of college
Yeah.
in order to even be considered for the NFL. And there aren't many
League.
other alternatives outside of the Canadian Football League.
That didn't
They
go.
almost had the XFL,
Yeah.
but you know,
That didn't go so good.
COVID kind of wiped them out. So it's just like
Mhm.
it depends on the sport because even though football would probably be the
Mhm.
most lucrative, you're
Yeah.
not
You know.
known as a football player. Like you have a helmet on. So even the NFL has issue being able to advertise like, hey, here's our players. Like outside of the quarterbacks and the star wide receivers and maybe the star running backs on the team, who else do you know? Like most people, I'm a diehard Detroit Lions fan. And most of the time, I couldn't name to you anyone outside of our stars on our defensive line or in our secondary. You hardly can name a tight end in the league outside of Travis Kelsey. Like, you're not going to know it. So, college athletes, it's going to be almost impossible for them to be able to capitalize off their likeness without
Mm-hmm.
promoting the university. So, it's going to be some issues, but I got a feeling the NCAA
Right.
is going to have to work with these athletes in some type of way because they can no
Yeah.
longer justify making billions of dollars,
Yeah.
not millions, billions of dollars off of these student athletes without them getting more than just
Yeah.
their scholarships. And some of them still are considered
Mm-hmm.
impoverished at the end of the day because they can't afford anything
Yeah. I
outside of
think
going to school.
this will be the closest we'll see with the NCAA paying student athletes. I don't think we'll ever get to that point just because I always get the feeling that the NCAA they're just money hungry. Like they don't want to. They don't really. I don't ever see it gets to that point. So I think that this is the only way where they can at least allow the athletes to be compensated in some way for their name, likeness, and their image with just being able to get other third party endorsements. So we'll see what happens. But like you said, you run into issues with trademark infringement if an athlete is trying to get a third party endorsement, but let's say they're not the most recognized and they need that brand or that school to actually get the endorsement. That's an issue. So I only think it really works for the top athletes that coming in like a Zion Williamson. Like if that was going on when he was at Duke, he probably would have been able to get all kinds of third party endorsements. But I think that it's going to be tough. But we'll see if it gets passed and if it really works out in the future. So it's going to be interesting.
But also, there are going to be legal implications because a lot of these athletes aren't
Yep.
knowledgeable about their rights to begin with. So they would need agents and things of that nature. And because of the rules of amateurism, they are not allowed to have agents and things of that nature as well. So there are going to be some obstacles in this, and this is not going to be an easy quick fix even for the star athletes, because if you hire an agent that helps manage your endorsement deals and the NCAA deems that to be take away from amateurism, you can lose your eligibility. That becomes a problem. So the NCAA is going to have to figure out a way to coexist with this newfound power for the athletes, because if they don't, athletes are just going to, especially in the major revenue bearing sports, are going to just opt to be professional athletes. And now they're having more and more options for men's, women's basketball and football. They're starting to get more and more options. Now, football, it's going to be hard for student athletes to get that type of leverage because they got to go to college. They just wouldn't have the bodies that they need going from high school into professional sports. They just wouldn't. But they are going to have to figure out something, because with the CTE scandal and everything still happening, and people, less and less players are playing football, if they don't figure something out, it'll be an obsolete sport anyway. So we'll have to just see how it goes. The law is retroactive, and so is a lot of the policies that's going to affect student athletes. My job, pretty much through my nonprofit, is to make sure that they're prepared and educated, so that when these things happen, they aren't going haphazardly into it. They understand the consequences of everything. They know how to weigh their options, and that they are ready and fully prepared to take advantage of every opportunity that they're able to get, whether it's not their image likeness or just being able to share things on Instagram. Now, that is a way that they could do it. Get stardom on Instagram and use that branding to leverage those type of endorsements.
Yeah, I think the social media is going to be a game changer for, you're already able to do a lot of different things with, sponsorships through that platform, that the athletes can really use that as leverage. So I think the social media will be very transformational for a lot of athletes that are looking to get those endorsements. So I'm looking forward to see how it's going to play out, and we'll see what happens here within the future. Now, as we're coming to a close with the show, I kind of wanted to get your opinion on estate planning. Just with you working with your legal background, just the conversations that you're having with your clients, whether it's an athlete, an entertainer. What are those conversations like, and how do you really drive home the importance of really protecting and securing your assets with leaving a legacy behind for someone's family?
So when you're looking at athletes and entertainers, a lot of them have eventually will end up having large financial things that they can end up leaving behind. We see it too often that you have Aretha Franklin died without a will. You have Prince died without a will. You have a lot of like superstar entertainers that didn't have proper estate planning, and you see the chaos that comes after that, at what belongs to who gets what. And if you don't have that outlined, either your family is going to be fighting, or the state is just going to take it and it's going to go to them. And I'm like, I tell my clients, do you want your mom to get this, or do you want the state to get this? And in California, you got to go through a whole lot of loopholes if there's no will and testament. Like there's like a special form you have to fill out for a small estate affidavit, and then you got to get approval from the probate court to be able to get access to their bank accounts. It is a headache that could have just been prevented. Literally, in some states, you can handwrite a will, and it's legally binding without witnesses. It's called a holographic will, and in Michigan, those are viable. So I told my mom, just write it down. Like, me and you can do a formal will later. Write it down, because I do not want to fight with my younger brother about whether or not, if you were incapacitated, seeing that she's a construction worker, something could happen and she could end up becoming a vegetable, which she doesn't want. I'm like, do you want me and my brother to fight on whether or not to pull the plug if the doctor says there's nothing else you can do? You need to be able to have those directives and put someone in place, someone that it has access to your accounts. Like, what happens when you get COVID or if you get COVID and you are on a ventilator tube, but your rent is due, are you expecting your kids to come out of their own pockets to be able to pay for your rent to make sure that you have a home if something happens to you? If you survive? Like, so many people don't think about the things that it's about more than just passing on what you have. Like, a lot of debts pass to your estate, and they're going to try to come after your children, and you won't be able to pass anything on to them because your estate will be attacked. Like, that's why I encourage life insurance. I encourage wills, even if you don't think you have anything, especially for entertainers, especially those in music, because you get royalties. In, of course, in film too, you get royalties from being involved in movies and in television and in music. Those royalties have to pass to someone. They don't die with you. So it's like you need to designate, hey, my royalties go to my children, or my royalties go to my parents. My business, me as a law firm owner, I can't pass my business to my mother because she's not a licensed attorney. So when constructing my business, I had to have a succession plan that if anything were to happen to me, I have another appointed attorney that will wrap up my client's affairs, that and then pass the equity component of my firm to my family. But a lot of people don't realize that you have to have things like that. Who takes over your business if you die? And I know me and you were young, we feel like we're invincible, but there people our age die every day too. So it's like, what do you have? The type of bills that you have, like, who gets your property? Like, who gets, like, I have this couch that you can see in the background. Who gets that couch? Like, it's just, I know some stuff will go intestate, but because I live in one state and my mom lives in another state, that could be an issue, because now it's like, if something happens to me, she got to come to California, file a petition with the California courts to be able to get access to my bank accounts and things of that nature. And then I also have business accounts. Like, it's too much. So my advice is always avoid the headache. Do not put more, like, you don't want to put more on your family than you have to while they're grieving. So that's pretty much, I kind of talk to them from a human element. And once they think about it, they're like, okay, let's get this estate planning done. Even if it's at minimum having a term life insurance policy. Because, like me, I have a whole life policy and a term life policy. My term life policy will pass on to my family. It'll take care of my nieces and nephews, my mom. And then my whole life policy is enough to cover my funeral. So they have a whole policy for just them to be able to reap the benefits from. And then there's one designated for my funeral. Now, if they want to go past the amount on that policy and bury me, I told them, cremate me. I don't need to be buried because it's an unnecessary expense. If they want to do it, I can't control it. But I have set them up to be prepared. And that's all I can do. I know,
you're right. Like, with me working towards being a financial advisor, like, I can't tell people the importance of having an effective estate plan. It's one thing that I'm working on myself, and I'm only 27, but I understand, like you said, life is short. None of us know when our time is going to be called, and the last thing you want to do is let the court decide where your assets will go. So I think, like everything that you're saying here, whether it's a will or a trust, you want to be able, you have the necessary beneficiaries in place, a trustee, even if you have a business, how that's going to be passed down. If you're an entertainer, you have royalties, how that stuff is going to be passed down. So it's such a it's a topic that it needs to be talked about more within the Black community, because I can't tell you how many people that have to go to like a GoFundMe page because they didn't have stuff, their family didn't have different things in place, and that's something that I don't want to see for my family. And it's just great to see the education that you're passing along when it comes to that. So I guess the last question here that I really want to ask Kristina is, how can the viewers really connect with you and also just learn more about the services that you provide?
Well, I am on all social media platforms, even though Twitter is not my strongest suit. But you can find me on Facebook at KT Wilson. You can find me on Instagram at KT Wilson Law. I am also have a website called www.ktwilsonlaw.com. And I have clients all over the place. I'm friends with them on Instagram. I follow them. They follow me. I promote their brands. I'm actually doing a promotion as we speak for the month of February to honor my Black clients that are doing their thing in business and entertainment. So follow me on Instagram and just feel free to reach out at any time because even if I can't help you legal services, I tend to know people who can. So
well, everyone definitely reach out to Kristina if you are interested in any legal services. She's very knowledgeable in her field, and she could at least point you in the direction if she's not specifically able to help you with whatever you're requesting. So, as far as insightful principles, if you all can please continue to like, subscribe, and share this video, continue to keep sharing this message of just financial literacy amongst your friends and family. I would greatly appreciate it. Also, I'm going to put my link tree in the show notes so you all can be able to connect with me on the different platforms that I will have this content on. And Kristina, I did want to tell you thank you so much for coming on the show. This was a very engaging conversation, and I enjoyed every bit of it. So thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me, and
no
let
problem.
me know if you need me
Well,
again.
world, I just want to tell you thank you for tuning in to another episode of Insightful Principles, and take care.